On today's Man of the Apes, Todd is still drunk from last night, so one beer is hitting him hard.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape! Exercise would an ape make a human down. It talks. We are the keepers of the divine bound. It is our only reason for survival. We are determined to know what the apes want, war or peace. The only good human is a dead human!
Hello. Oh, hang on. No.
I mean, doesn't this mean technically you've been drunk for 4 days from last night?
Wow. It kind of does. So, hello and welcome
sense.
to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every Planet of the Apes movies 1 minute at a time. I swear to God, I will not slur my words any further.
All right.
But I did have to tell the guys we usually crack a few beers here and there, and I was like, I got to stop because, man, it's kind of crazy at 52 years old how you can have alcohol the night before. You feel fine. You have one more, and you're like, oh, God. So here we are at minute 34. I'm going to hand it to you, Sean, so I can kind of recoup.
We're going to start minute 34 with a reporter asking how, for instance, and ends with Hasline saying that something is still missing.
All right, let's take a listen to minute 34 of Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
How, for instance, a person or persons could travel from time past to time future, or indeed vice versa.
Mr. Barnes, I think that time can only be fully understood by an observer with the godlike gift of infinite regression.
Could you explain infinite regression for us?
Roll the film.
I'll be more than happy to. As a matter of fact, I came prepared to do just that.
Now, here's a painting of a landscape. Now, the artist who painted that picture says something is missing. What is it? It is I myself who was part of the landscape I painted. So he mentally takes a step backward, or regresses, and paints a picture of the artist painting a picture of the landscape. But still something is missing, and that something is still his real self painting the second picture. So he regresses further and paints a third, a picture of the artist painting a picture of the artist painting a picture of the landscape. But because something is still missing.
All right, as of minute 34, we have a planet's worth of humans, plus 2 living apes and 1 dead ape.
So here we go. This is our minute where we get to listen to Otto explain infinite regression. Infinite regression. So where do we begin in our talks of infinite regression?
You start off by going, nerds!
Literally, when I heard infinite regression, I thought, okay, they automatically started with, and I know they wanted something that sounded very learned, but they started with the most complex of monikers for something that I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Well,
What the
this is actually something that Aristotle would argue. Infinite regression is an actual. I mean, and
Really?
Dane didn't just pull this out of nowhere.
Okay, hey, props to Dane. I like it.
Aristotle from Posterior Analytics. There, you can find a little small article on Wikipedia for infinite regression.
Posterior analytics has so many possibilities of things to giggle at that I'm just going to leave it
That's the
alone.
name of my
The
porn film.
idea basically in consciousness is that infinite regresses. The consciousness is the formation of an infinite series of inner observers as they ask the question of who is observing the output and the neural correlates of consciousness in the study of the subjective consciousness. It's also demonstrated.
I was told there'd be no
It's
math.
also demonstrated in optics by placing parallel facing mirrors, right? That idea?
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what it is.
So it applies to everyone but vampires then, because they don't
can't
see the
see each other.
reflection. You infinitely aren't there as a
I
vampire.
can't participate.
Wow. Okay. So there's a movie that needs to happen is time traveling vampires. Apparently they can't time travel. That's how you beat a vampire. You time travel. Son of a bitch.
Technically, aren't we all time traveling 1 second at a time into the future?
Yeah, technically.
But I will say the execution of Dane's theory of infinite regression was amateurish in production and complex in conveying what he wanted. Like, it was just not, if I were watching, and I'm watching the minute, and I'm like, what? What is he saying? I don't understand. Positing with the idea of the mirror, made more sense to me than the painter pulling back.
So first off, I was completely in awe of you just then as you explained because even your explanation of it was just wow. You use your words of you were perplexed by this, but that. And so, all right, automatically I'm going to applaud you. But here's what kind of hit me.
Todd's really happy that you used your words.
I used my words. Thank you.
I loved your words.
What is English? It was taught to me by my father, who was taught by his mothers and
Me
fathers.
fail English? That's impossible.
So as we listen to this minute, what happens is that as Otto explains what infinite regression is, he uses a painting that I've actually seen before. And, he gets into it where now he does not. This is only the beginning of the painting, but the painting will really be detailed in the next minute.
Yeah, we can't go too far into this. We can talk about what's happening at this moment.
So in this one, how much of the paint? I know because I will say this: they do fix my problem with the monitor where it was static before, and they begin to play back in that monitor, so we see the opening shots of the painting.
And then for some reason, what do you call him? The floor director.
The floor director bringing them a copy of the picture for them to look at.
It was odd.
That was weird. Yeah,
I think it was supposed to be a TV, but it's obviously not a TV. It's just like a painted box with the painting on it, and he wheels it in specifically for Hassline to see. Hassline doesn't need to see
No,
this.
he knows what he's talking about. Yeah.
So Hassline and Bill Bonds now have an image between two cameras on a box that is the painting, right? That is supposed to be some type of monitor, but it's not. It's just a box with a painting on it.
Yeah.
So it's also a visual for the audience because they're not going to show us the reveal, but we needed to see something about what he's talking about. So they're giving the audience the sense of, here is the painting that he's about to talk about.
Okay. So, and what does he say about infinite regression in this moment?
He says, here's a painting of a landscape. Well, no. He starts off with Bonds finishes. Could you explain in terms that would be understood by a less knowledgeable viewer?
I mean, the viewer, not me, because I definitely understand what you're saying.
Because I'm very learned.
Yes.
How a person could travel from the future to the past, or indeed vice versa. And he goes, time can fully be understood by an observer with godlike gift of infinite regression. So he calls the theory infinite regression. And then Bill Bonds, and this is in the script, and you see it in the moment, wincing. Can you explain infinite regression? Like if you look, right. He said right before he utters the line, could you explain infinite regression? You see him go,
because he knows everyone out there is going, what? I'm sorry.
The reporter's
what?
Like, you just threw something, you just laid something down that nobody will follow. But I love that he winces, and Dane wanted to wince, like, oh, like it was just like, and then that's when we see the painting move into shot, and that's when Hassline says, here is the painting of the landscape. But the artist who painted it says something is missing. What is it? It is I myself who is part of the landscape I painted. So he mentally takes a step backward or regresses and paints a picture of the artist painting a picture of the landscape. And still something is missing. Because we get all the way through. Let's see. Did we get to the point?
And still something is missing is where we end.
It's just like the shot of the two of them at the desk, and Hassline is now leaned forward. He kind of has his hands a little bit clasped, like we were talking about dominance, right? But he's got it down here on the desk.
And his shoulders are hunkered down, though. That's the weird part of that.
Yeah, and we've got Bill Bonds, who's still just like, Yeah. He really is like, where's this going? I have no idea what's going to happen. And so he kind of does this. We see the picture, and then we do see, we're still in this minute when we actually start to see the painter revealed.
Right.
So we have the painter, we have the painting, and then the painter is revealed, and then we get the second reveal.
Right.
And then...
Yeah, do we get to the third? No,
we stop just shy of the third. We get two pullbacks.
But it feels like we've gone from Norman Rockwell to MC Escher.
The thing that I don't understand is how infinite regression defines time.
I don't know.
What I don't understand is that infinite regression begins with a painter painting a landscape and realizes something is missing, so they begin to paint themselves into it. Aren't you still missing something, which is the decision to paint a landscape? Therefore, and it's almost like
you're missing the observer.
Yeah,
you're saying that the painter then becomes the observer observing himself, becomes the observer observing himself. So each moment he's taking him out of it. I mean, I understand where they're going with it, but
what does it have to do with time?
The painter painting a picture is not something that godlike. I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody else who's like, hey guys, I have the
It
answer
feels
to this
more like to
question.
me somebody dropped LSD and kind of thought, "Oh man, it looks
Yeah,
like this,
man.
man. I'm painting myself."
But
You know?
what if then you painted a picture of you painting yourself?
I don't
man?
understand how it explains time.
Yeah.
I don't either. And so I joked with the guys beforehand. The explanation in Peggy Sue Got Married, where they use a burrito, even though burritos were not prevalent as a food type in America in the 50s, they were around, but they weren't the Taco Bell type burrito or Chipotle that we have today. And they use it where the tortilla laps onto itself, and that occasionally it touches ripples where it's occurred before. That makes more sense to me, where time envelops itself.
Well,
I just go
but
with
time is still
wibbly
supposed to be
wobbly,
linear,
timey-wimey.
right? It's not actually able to fold on itself.
Well,
I mean, the stuff that I've read about time in terms of linear is that you could go in either direction, but it doesn't necessarily bend. Does that make sense? That
Yeah.
you can go forward and you can go backwards because it moves in that progression both directions.
but I think that those things where they're trying to explain time by bending are the explanations for, okay, fine. How could you do it when we can't do it right now? Well, technically it can envelop itself. It can do these things. And I think that's where they're trying to do it. I think that's what infinite regression is trying to explain, is that an infinite number of possibilities of time occur and you can jump around. But even in this idea that the painter's painting the painter, painting the painter, painting the painter, painting the painter, those are still a succession of right here and right now. They aren't 2,000 years in our future. And if it is 2,000 years in the future, you're saying that I can somehow jump back to only this pinpoint in time that has no definition within a landscape of time.
I just go with the good place to explanation of time being Jeremy Bearimy.
We just watched the
I like
first
that too.
episode of season 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3.
3. We just watched the first episode tonight. It's a good show.
It is.
Which one?
Well, good
place.
Oh, that is a great show. I didn't realize that you were referencing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeremy Bearimy.
But so we're not going into the next moment. The next moment he gets a little more explicit in terms of what the implication of this infinite regression is. But if we're just simply looking at this minute and he's talking about infinite regression, he to me is not explaining time. He's explaining the ability to observe yourself.
Agreed.
not-
And
how
then
you
you're
travel
self-observing
time.
yourself, and then you're self-observing yourself, and then you're self-observing self. And this idea of godlike potential means you would never actually get to the point of knowing fully anything because you're constantly observing.
You're always navel gazing.
You're always the observer.
Right.
You're never outside of that moment.
And that was my problem, is that when in an infinite regression does any other part of time come in? Because it is a constant, I'm observing myself, observing myself, observing myself, observing.
Yeah.
There has to be a point at which time somehow allows for jumping within it for that theory to make sense.
I mean, he's trying to go into a theory in the next moment to explain some things.
Right.
Which I think is even bigger concept than this infinite regression. I think infinite regression is almost like let's throw kind of a red herring scientific idea out there that will not really explain where we are, but can lead to where we need to go in the movie.
Now, you reference what he says in the next minute, and I have the feeling that we're kind of drawing this minute to a conclusion because it is confusing in and of itself, and there's not a lot to discuss. He does make a reference in the next minute, which at least is a little bit more feasible for what time can be
Correct.
and how it works.
Correct. But
So-
just in terms of this moment of infinite regression, which is an actual thing, is just... if I were at home, I wouldn't be following. He's not doing he's not doing a good job explaining what it is.
But then again, is that what is almost intended, which is I'm a little too smart for you, and I'm somehow
Maybe
thinking
that's
something
why
far
Bill
deeper.
Bonds is wincing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say this is a short episode today. Let's stop it here because I want to get to tomorrow. I want to get to when it begins to make sense about time.
Okay.
Is that fair? Does anyone have anything they want to throw in on
You
this?
want to jump through time to tomorrow.
Yeah, my
to
infinite
explain
regression is I
what
want
you
to
want to
get
explain about time today.
yes, and I want to know when I began painting the portrait that became the portrait that I painted. That I painted a portrait of the
That you
portrait
painted.
I painted.
Happy trees. Watching
Hang on.
somebody paint happy trees.
Okay. All right, that's minute 34 in the books. You know what, everyone? Go have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow, and I promise your heads will not hurt tomorrow once we can talk about time. We hope, right?
We hope.
We hope.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, I stole your line.
God.